They called him Dante Moretti in the streets, but inside the gates of the Moretti estate, he was simply Sir. No one raised their voice around him. No one slammed doors. No one dared to laugh too loudly. Because the story was older than the marble floors, Dante was born deaf. A mafia boss who couldn't hear, a king who ruled by reading lips, watching shadows, and sensing danger like a dog smelling lightning. It made him legendary. It also made him untouchable. His men communicated with hand signals. His enemies feared the silent boss, who couldn't be intimidated by threats. And the estate staff? They worked like ghosts, quiet, careful, disposable. Until the day Maurice Duval arrived. She wore a plain black uniform. Her hair was pinned neatly. Her hands didn't shake when the security team searched her bag. But her eyes looked like someone who had survived too much and learned how to hide it. She introduced herself with a calm smile to the head housekeeper, Mrs. Bramble, an elderly woman who had served the family for decades. "You're late," Mrs. Bramble snapped, glancing at the clock, "and if you're here to get starry-eyed over the lifestyle, leave now. This house eats people." Maris nodded once. "I'm not here for the lifestyle." She was here for answers and revenge, because in her pocket, hidden where the guards hadn't checked, was a small device. A gift from her dead brother, the last thing he'd sent before they found him hanging in his prison cell. A device that shouldn't exist, and a note that changed everything. It's not that he can't hear. It's that he's not supposed to. The first time Maris saw Dante, sure, he was sitting in the sunroom, still as a statue, dressed in a dark suit despite the warmth. His jaw was lined with a shadow of stubble. A scar split his right eyebrow like a slash from an old life. A tattoo peeked from his collar, a black swallow in flight. 2 bodyguards stood by the door. Another man, older and sleek, paced near the window. Silas Crane, Dante's trusted advisor, the one who smiled like a lawyer and watched like a vulture. Dante looked up, his gaze locked onto Maris with unsettling precision. He couldn't hear, they said. Yet he noticed everything. Mrs. Bramble clapped once to get Dante's attention, more for tradition than necessity. She spoke slowly, enunciating so he could read her lips. "New maid. Temporary. Keep your staff in line, sir." Maris lowered her eyes like a servant should. But she could feel him studying her, measuring her posture, her breathing, her fear level. Then Dante's fingers moved in quick signs towards Silas. Silas translated smoothly, like they'd rehearsed it for years. "Sir says, if she breaks anything, she pays. If she speaks out of turn, she leaves." Maris nodded. Understood. Dante didn't look away. For a second, something flickered in his face, like recognition, like a memory trying to wake, and Maris felt the first sting of confusion, because the man in front of her didn't look like a monster. He looked like someone who had learned how to become one. Maris had a file in her head, every detail memorized because paper could be stolen. A year ago, her younger brother Rory had been arrested after a warehouse fire. The police said it was a gang dispute. The news called him an associate. The courts called him guilty. He died in prison 3 weeks later, official cause. Suicide. But Maris knew Rory. He was a mechanic who fixed cars and made dumb jokes. He was stubborn, yes. Hot-headed, sure. But suicidal? Never. Someone had set him up. And when Maris pulled favours, begged for footage, bribed a clerk for sealed documents, one name kept appearing like a watermark: Moretti. So she did the one thing people like her never tried. She walked into the lion's den and applied to be a maid. No one knew that before Rory died, he had mailed her a small padded envelope with a note. "If anything happens to me, don't trust the police. Don't trust the papers. Trust this." Inside the envelope was a tiny device, a medical-grade hearing amplifier with a custom casing, and a handwritten message. It's not that he can't hear. It's that he's not supposed to. Maris didn't understand it then. She did now. That night, Maris cleaned the hallway outside Dante's private office. The guards rotated shifts. Cameras watched every angle. Still, she managed to slip into the laundry room and retrieve the small device Rory had sent. She held it between her fingers like a secret bullet. Then she remembered Rory's note. It's not that he can't hear, it's that he's not supposed to. Maris didn't plan to save Dante. She planned to expose him. But the more she watched the house, the stranger the silence felt. Dante never spoke, not even in private. He signed, wrote, or let Silas speak for him. The staff treated Silas like a second boss. The guards listened to Silas's instructions as if they came from Dante himself. And Mrs. O'Bramble? She kept glancing at Silas like she wanted to spit. The next morning, Maris was assigned to serve Dante breakfast in the sunroom. The tray trembled slightly in her hands, not from fear but from adrenaline. She placed the cup down carefully. Dante's eyes followed her. His gaze dropped to her wrist, a faint scar shaped like a crescent. Maris stiffened. She had gotten that scar as a teenager the day she tried to pull Rory out of a fight. Dante's expression tightened, like pain. Then slowly he signed something. Silas leaned in, watched Dante's hands and said, "Sir says, you're clumsy." Dante's eyes narrowed at Silas. Maris caught it, tiny, sharp. Dante signed again, slower, clearer. Silas hesitated. "Sir says, leave." But Dante didn't look like he meant it. "You've seen how high the stakes are now. Though, but this is just the beginning. What happens next will change everything. Comment where you're watching from. Now, let's get into it. Subscribe now and stay with us. You won't want to miss what's coming. Can you walk away now, knowing you've come this far?" The morning light fell through tall windows, casting the dining room in gold. Maris arranged fresh flowers at the centre table, keeping her movements measured, careful. In this house, being noticed meant being watched. She heard them before she saw them, the heavy footsteps of bodyguards first, then the lighter steps of two men. Dante entered with Silas close behind him, like a shadow that never left. Maris kept her eyes down, but she felt Dante's gaze landing on her like a physical weight. Today was different. Today he wasn't passing through. He stopped at the table. See his presence commanding the room without a single word. He wore a charcoal suit, expensive but understated. Power that didn't need to announce itself. "Sir would like coffee," Silas said, his voice smooth as oil. "Black." Maris nodded, turning toward the service cart, her sleeve pulled back just enough as she reached for the pot. Dante's hand shot out, grabbing her wrist, not roughly, but with a grip that allowed no escape. The room froze. Guards tensed. Silas's expression darkened. No one touched Dante, and Dante touched no one. Yet here he was, his fingers circling her wrist, turning it slowly to reveal the crescent-shaped scar that curved along her skin. His eyes narrowed, something flickering behind them. Recognition. Anger. She couldn't tell. His fingers traced the scar once, a question without words. Maris found her voice. "I'm a kitchen accident, sir." Dante's eyes held hers, calling her a liar without sound. His thumb pressed against the centre of the scar, a knife wound, years old. They both knew it. Silas cleared his throat. "Sir asks if you're competent enough to pour coffee without spilling it, given your clumsiness." But Dante's expression said something entirely different. His eyes weren't cold anymore. They were searching, like he was trying to place her in a memory. He released her wrist and signed something rapid to Silas. "Sir says your name again." "Maris Duval." Dante's jaw tightened. The name meant something to him. He signed again, watching her face, not Silas's. "Sir says serve the coffee and leave," Silas translated. As Maris poured, her hands steady despite everything, she caught Dante watching her scar again. His eyes carried a haunted shadow, like he'd seen a ghost walking among the living. And maybe he had. Over the next 3 days, Maris mapped the house like a battlefield. The camera's blind spots, the guards' rotation schedule, which staff were loyal to Dante, which were Silas's eyes and ears. But most importantly, she watched Dante and Silas together. Silas never left Dante alone with anyone for more than minutes. He controlled every conversation, every piece of information that reached Dante, like a gatekeeper to a kingdom, or a jailer with a single prisoner. On the fourth morning, Maris was polishing silver in the small dining room when Dante entered alone. A rare moment. Silas was on a call in the hallway, voice low and urgent. Dante nodded at Maris, then looked pointedly at the door Silas would come through. A warning. Maris understood. She kept polishing, but her senses heightened. Dante took a seat, reviewing papers spread before him. His fingers brushed a document aside, revealing a newspaper clipping. Maris glimpsed a headline about warehouse fires before he covered it again. He looked up, catching her watching. Instead of anger, his eyes held question. The door opened. Silas returned, phone still in hand, his smile practiced but eyes cold. "Problem with the Miami shipment?" he asked Dante. Dante signed something brief. "Sir says no. Everything's fine." Dante's jaw tightened imperceptibly. Silas noticed Maris and frowned. "Why are you still here?" Before she could answer, Dante signed something, deliberate, clear movements. "Sir says you're dismissed," Silas translated. But Maris had been watching Dante's hands every chance she got, and learning basic signs from YouTube videos at night. She recognized the movement. Dante hadn't signed dismissed or leave. He'd signed stay, and Silas had changed his words completely. Maris lowered her eyes, nodding obediently, and backed toward the door. As she turned, she caught Dante's reflection in a silver platter. His eyes met hers in the reflection. He knew that she knew. And in that moment, something shifted between them, a silent acknowledgement of the trap they were both caught in. If Silas controlled what Dante said to the world, what else was he controlling? And how long had this puppet show been going on? The chance came 3 days later, in a moment no one predicted. Dante returned from a meeting with a bruise blooming under his collar. His movements were stiff, his jaw set like he'd been chewing nails. Maris found him alone in the corridor outside his private rooms. No guards, no Silas. Just Dante, one hand gripping the wall like he was dizzy. Instinct took over. She stepped forward. "Sir?" He didn't react. Then she realized. He wasn't watching her lips. He was staring at the floor, like he didn't want to see the world. Maris swallowed hard. She pulled the small device from her pocket. Dante's eyes snapped up, sharp, suspicious. Maris lifted it slowly, showing him the casing. She pointed behind her ear, then to his. A question without words. Dante's stare turned ice cold, but beneath it was something else. Hope, fear, memory. Maris reached toward him. He didn't move, didn't allow it, didn't refuse it either. Her fingers brushed his hair, exposing the skin behind his ear, and she saw it. A faint line almost healed like a small surgical scar. Maris pressed the device into place. For a breath, nothing happened. Then Dante flinched, a full-body jerk, like someone had struck him with sound. His eyes widened. Maris leaned close, voice barely above a whisper. "Can you hear me?" Dante's throat bobbed, his lips parted. A hoarse sound came out, unused, raw. "Yes." Behind them, Mrs. Bramble froze in the doorway, a hand over her mouth. And somewhere down the hall, a door creaked. Dante's hand shot out, gripping Maris's wrist hard enough to bruise. His eyes weren't on her. They were fixed on the end of the hallway, hearing what she couldn't. Footsteps, multiple sets, coming closer. "How long?" His voice was rough, unpracticed, like a rusted gate forced open. "How long what?" Maris whispered. "How long have you known?" Each word seemed to cost him, his throat working painfully. "My brother sent it before he died. Said you weren't supposed to hear." Something flickered across his face. Recognition, pain, rage. "Rory," he said, the name dragging from his throat. Maris's blood froze. "You knew him." The footsteps grew louder. Dante's grip tightened. "Hide this. Now." He touched the device. "If Silas sees—" Maris slipped the device from behind his ear, tucking it into her pocket just as the door at the end of the hall swung open. Within an hour, Silas arrived with a smile too polite to be real. Dante sat in his office, shoulders tense, the device hidden under his hair. Maris stood near the door, trying not to look like she was shaking. Silas watched Dante's face, then Maris's, then Dante's again. He signed to Dante, fast, aggressive. Dante signed back slowly, eyes cold. Silas's smile didn't move, but his gaze sharpened like a blade. He spoke to Maris. "You did something you weren't asked to do." Maris kept her voice steady. "I helped." Silas leaned closer, voice smooth. "In this house, helping can be fatal." When he left, Dante turned to Maris and wrote on a notepad, his handwriting sharp and controlled. "Why are you really here?" Maris stared at the words. Her revenge plan had been clear. Until Dante spoke. Until she saw the scar behind his ear. Until she realized someone had made him this way. She wrote back, "My brother died. Your name was on the files." Dante's eyes darkened. He wrote, "I didn't kill him." Maris's breath caught. She wanted to believe him. She didn't trust herself for wanting to. Dante wrote again, slower. Silas did. Maris's skin went cold. As then Dante added the sentence that changed everything. "I think Rory was trying to save me." Dante pulled the notepad back, writing frantically, "Listen carefully. I can't be seen speaking. Not yet. Silas has eyes everywhere." Maris nodded, reading as he continued. "After I was 18, tried to leave this life. Car accident. Woke up deaf. Silas became my voice, my controller. The reality hit Maris like a physical blow. Dante wasn't the monster who'd killed her brother. He was another victim, a prisoner in his own kingdom." She wrote, "Why would Rory help you?" Dante's pen hesitated. His eyes met hers, searching, uncertain. "There's a connection I don't understand yet. Rory found out I wasn't deaf. Tried to get me this. Silas found out." Maris's hands trembled as she wrote, "We need proof." Dante nodded, and then wrote one final line that sent ice through her veins. "Be careful. Last person who knew this truth is your dead brother." Dante's truth came in fragments, vivid, brutal scenes. He wasn't born deaf. When he was 18, he tried to leave the life. His father had ruled with cruelty, and Dante had sworn he'd never become that. But the organization didn't allow exits. Silas, who had been like an uncle, arranged a car accident. Dante survived, but woke up unable to hear. Doctors called it damage. The family called it fate. Silas called it control, because a deaf boss was easier to steer. A silent king was easier to puppeteer. Silas became the voice of Moretti, and anyone who suspected the truth disappeared. Maris found Dante in his private study that night, the hearing device tucked behind his ear. His fingers trembled as he practiced speaking, real words, his own words, for the first time in years. "How long?" Maris asked. "How long have you been trapped like this?" 10 years, Dante said, his voice still rough from disuse. "A decade of watching Silas speak for me, making deals I never agreed to, ordering deaths I never wanted. Why not just tell someone? Run." Dante's laugh was bitter. "Run where? The family owns judges, police chiefs, politicians." His eyes darkened. "The first year I tried fighting back, wrote notes, tried to tell my doctor. What happened? The doctor died in a mugging. My cousin who suspected something crashed his car. 3 staff members who asked questions vanished." Maris's blood ran cold. "So you just gave up?" "I adapted," Dante corrected. "Learned to watch, to remember, to document everything Silas did in my name." His eyes met hers, fierce with banked fury. "I wasn't giving up. I was waiting." "For what?" "For someone Silas couldn't control." Dante's gaze dropped to her hands. "I never expected it would be you." Something shifted in the air between them, dangerous, electric. "Why would my brother help you?" Maris asked, steering back to safer ground. "He wasn't connected to your world." Dante's expression changed. "That's what I'm still figuring out. Rory approached me at an event 6 months ago, passed me a note, said he knew I could hear, said he had proof Silas was stealing from me, using my name to build his own empire. And you believed him? I didn't. Not at first. Dante's jaw tightened. Then he showed me medical records, from my accident, surgical notes about procedures that were never needed, and a name I recognized, my father's private doctor. The one who said you'd never hear again. Dante nodded. Rory was working on something else too, something about our families. But before he could tell me, his voice faltered. The warehouse fire happened. The one he was blamed for. The one Silas ordered, using my name. Over the next week, Maris and Dante formed an alliance built on danger. She taught him how to speak again in whispers, late at night when the cameras were angled away. His voice was rough, like a door that hadn't opened in years. He taught her the language of the house, where the blind spots were, which guards were loyal, which ones were paid twice. They weren't supposed to touch. But one night, when Maris's hands trembled too much to hold a cup of tea, Dante reached for her wrist and steadied it. His thumb brushed her scar. Who did that? He asked, voice low. Maris swallowed. Life. Dante looked like he understood too well. The air between them tightened, fear, attraction, loneliness, and a strange recognition neither of them could name. Maris pulled away first, because romance in a Mafia house wasn't a candlelit fantasy. It was a trigger waiting to be pulled. Tell me more about this scar, Dante said, his eyes never leaving her face. The truth this time. Maris hesitated. I was 16. Rory got into a fight with some boys who were harassing me. I jumped in when one pulled a knife, caught the blade here. She traced the crescent shape. 17 stitches. Dante's expression darkened. Rory protected you. Always. Since we were kids. Her throat tightened. That's why I can't believe he'd kill himself. He never gave up on anything. He didn't. Dante's certainty was absolute. How can you be so sure? Because the night before the fire, he contacted me again, said he'd found something big, something that would free me from Silas. His voice dropped. He was excited, not suicidal. What did he find? I don't know. He was supposed to meet me the next day. Maris looked away, the grief she'd been holding back threatening to overwhelm her. I keep thinking if I'd known what he was involved in. You'd be dead too, Dante said bluntly. Maybe that would be better than not knowing why. Dante moved closer, his hand catching hers again. Don't say that. Their eyes locked. And something shifted. A current passing between them that had nothing to do with revenge or justice. Why do you look at me like that sometimes? Maris whispered. Like you know me. Dante's expression changed, vulnerability breaking through his carefully controlled facade. Because when I look at you, I see someone familiar, he admitted. Someone I can't place, but... His words trailed off as footsteps sounded in the hallway. Maris pulled her hand away, heart pounding. The footsteps passed, but the moment remained, hanging between them, a dangerous connection neither of them had planned for, and neither knew how to fight. Mrs. Bramble cornered Maris in the pantry, eyes sharp. You put something behind his ear, she whispered. Don't lie to me. Maris's heart raced. If you tell Silas... Mrs. Bramble slammed the pantry door shut. Child... If I wanted you dead, you'd already be dead. Then she pulled a worn photograph from her apron pocket. It showed a teenage boy, Dante, standing beside a woman holding a baby. Mrs. Bramble pointed at the baby. That's you, she said. Maris stared, blood draining from her face. That's impossible. Mrs. Bramble's voice cracked. Your mother worked here once. She ran when she realized what the family was. She took you and your brother. She thought she could disappear. Maris's mind spun. Mrs. Bramble added the final blow. Rory wasn't just trying to save Dante. He was trying to save family. Maris stumbled back, shaking. Dante, connected to her. It reframed everything, her rage, her obsession, her strange sense of familiarity in his eyes. That's not possible, Maris whispered. My mother was Selena Duval. My father died when I was a baby. Your mother was Celine, yes. But she didn't tell you everything. Mrs. Bramble's eyes softened. She was a maid here, like you. Young, beautiful. The old boss's brother noticed her. Dante's uncle? No? Mrs. Bramble shook her head slowly. Dante's father? The floor seemed to tilt under Maris's feet. Are you saying? Dante is your half-brother. You have the same father. Mrs. Bramble touched Maris's shoulder. Your mother fled when she learned she was pregnant. She feared for your life. The old boss would never allow his brother's illegitimate child to live under the same roof as his son and heir. Maris felt sick. But Rory, was your mother's child from before? Your stepbrother. He found out somehow, started digging, found records. That's what got him killed, Maris whispered. Mrs. Bramble nodded grimly. He discovered you were blood, and he discovered something worse, something about Silas. Maris's hands trembled. I have to tell Dante. Be careful, child. If Silas learns that you know, Mrs. Bramble's voice faltered. He's killed for less. Maris stood frozen, trying to process this new reality. The Mafia boss she'd come to destroy, the man she'd begun to feel drawn to, was her brother, her blood, her family. You've come this far now, and everything is about to change. The truth about family bonds and betrayal runs deeper than you think. Comment where you're watching from. Now, let's get into it. Subscribe now if you want to see how this revelation affects everything between Dante and Maris. Can you really walk away now, knowing they share the same blood? Silas moved faster than they expected. The next day, a trusted guard named Kellen slipped Maris a note. Silas knows. Meet in the greenhouse. Now. Maris's stomach dropped. The greenhouse was a glass corridor on the estate's far side. Beautiful, isolated, and surrounded by cameras. A perfect place to die. She went anyway, because Dante was in danger. Inside, she found Dante standing among tall orchids, his face unreadable. Silas stepped out from behind a palm, clapping slowly. Well done, he said. Both of you, truly. It's rare to see such devotion. Guards appeared at the doors. Silas smiled at Maris. You came for him. How romantic. He turned to Dante and spoke slowly, exaggerated, like mocking the old deaf act. You know what I love about you, Dante? Even when you regain your hearing, you still can't hear the truth. Then he pulled out a file. Rory Duval, prison suicide. Ah, tragic. Silas sighed. He wasn't your brother, Maris. He was your leash. Maris froze. What? Silas continued, voice silky. We let you believe he was family. We let you believe he loved you. We needed you motivated. Maris's vision blurred. Silas leaned in. Your real brother died years ago. Rory was planted to watch you, to guide you, to deliver that little device. On our schedule. Dante's hands clenched. Maris's throat burned. You're lying. Silas's eyes gleamed. Am I? He snapped his fingers. A guard wheeled in a laptop. Video footage played. Rory in a dim room talking to someone off camera. She trusts me, Rory said. She'll do what she needs to do. She always does. Maris felt like the floor vanished. Dante's voice broke through, low, furious. Turn it off, Silas laughed. Oh, you can speak now. How adorable. Then Silas's smile vanished. Kill the maid. Dante stepped forward, positioning himself between Maris and the guards. You touch her. You die first. Silas's eyebrows rose. Such emotion for a half-sister you just met. He looked between them, his expression changing. Or is it more than that? Oh my, you didn't tell her, did you, Dante? Tell me what? Maris demanded, her voice shaking. That I lied about one little detail, Silas said, his smile returning. You don't share a father with Dante, that would be too simple. No, your connection is different. Dante's face hardened. Enough. Why stop now? It's all coming apart anyway. Silas turned to Maris. The real truth will break your heart, my dear, and I'm going to enjoy watching it happen. The guards raised their guns. Chaos exploded. Maris didn't scream. She moved, pure instinct, throwing a metal watering can at the closest guard's head. Glass shattered. Orchids toppled. Dante lunged for Silas, but two guards grabbed him. Maris ran, toward Dante, not away. Because if she left him, Silas would cut the device out and bury Dante alive in silence again. A gunshot cracked. Maris flinched, then realised the sound came from the doorway. Mrs. Bramble stood there holding a pistol with trembling hands. One guard fell. She barked, "Move!" Maris grabbed Dante's arm. Dante shoved a guard into a glass table, the crash echoing like thunder. They sprinted through the greenhouse as bullets punched holes in the panes. Outside, Kellen waited with a car, engine running, door open. "Get in!" he shouted. They piled inside. Tires screamed against gravel. Silas stood in the greenhouse doorway, face calm, and raised his phone. Maris's stomach sank. He wasn't chasing. He was calling someone, a bigger monster. "Where are we going?" Maris gasped as the car sped through the estate gates. "Safe house," Kellen said, eyes on the road. "Dante's backup plan." Mrs. Bramble sat beside Maris, the gun still in her lap. Her hands shook, but her eyes were hard. "I've waited 15 years to point a gun at that man," she said. Dante's voice came from the front seat, raw with emotion. "Thank you, Martha," Mrs. Bramble nodded once, "for Celine, for her children." Maris stared at the old woman. "You knew my mother that well." "I helped her escape," Mrs. Bramble said, "the night she learned what the family really was." Kellen cut in. "We've got company." 2 black SUVs had appeared behind them, closing fast. "Silas's men?" Dante said. "All. Kellen, on it." Kellen swerved suddenly down a narrow side street. Maris grabbed the door handle as they took a sharp turn into an alley, then another. "They'll have the airports watched," Dante said. "Train stations, bus terminals." "Good thing we're not leaving town," Kellen replied with a grim smile. The car plunged into an underground parking garage, lights off, moving by memory. They stopped beside a freight elevator. "Switch cars," Dante ordered. "This one's tagged." Within minutes, they were in a nondescript sedan, climbing through the city toward the hills. No one spoke. The weight of what had just happened, of what Silas had revealed, hung between them like smoke. Maris finally broke the silence. Was he lying? About Rory? Dante's hands clenched. "I don't know." But his eyes said he feared the worst. They decided on a plan that wasn't just revenge. It was justice. Dante had records, ledger books, offshore accounts, names of corrupt officials. But Silas controlled most of it, so they flipped the script. They'd make Silas confess. Maris contacted an old friend from her past life, Detective Jonas Rourke, a man who had once tried to help Rory and got punished for it. He was bruised by the system, but not broken. Dante made a deal. Evidence for immunity. Not for himself, but for the innocent staff and coerced workers trapped in the Moretti machine. And then, the most dangerous part, they returned to the estate. Not to fight. To bait Silas into believing he'd won. The safe apartment was in an old building downtown, owned through a shell corporation Silas knew nothing about. Dante paced the worn floorboards, intention radiating from him like heat. Maris sat on the couch, shaking, replaying Rory's words on loop. "You don't have to believe him," Dante said softly. Maris laughed bitterly. "I don't know what to believe anymore." Dante's gaze hardened. "Then we find proof." Mrs. Bramble arrived an hour later, breathless, clutching a folder. "This was your mother's," she said, handing it to Maris. "She gave it to me before she ran. Inside were birth certificates, old, altered, hidden." Maris's hands trembled as she read. Her mother's name, Celine Duval. Father, unknown. But tucked behind it was a letter, faded ink, urgent handwriting. "If you're reading this, it means I failed. Maris, you were born in this house. Your father is not who you think. The man everyone fears is not the one who ruined us. It was Silas. Always Silas. He wears loyalty like perfume. Don't breathe it in." Maris looked up at Dante, and finally the truth clicked into place. Dante's eyes softened, painful, tender. "I saw you before," he whispered. "When we were kids, you were holding a toy rabbit. You cried when my father yelled." Maris's voice shook. "Why didn't you tell me?" Dante's jaw clenched. "Because I didn't want it to be true. Because if it was true, then their romance was a weapon Silas could twist. A love that felt like destiny now felt like a curse. "What exactly are we to each other?" Maris asked, her voice barely audible. Dante looked away. "I don't know for certain, but I remember a girl. They said she was my cousin. She lived with us for almost a year. Then she disappeared with her mother. That was me? Your cousin? Maybe." His voice hardened. Or maybe Silas is lying about everything. Using Rory, using our past, using whatever connection we have to break us." Mrs. Bramble cleared her throat. "There's more." She pulled another document from her pocket. "Hospital records, from the night your mother left." Maris took the paper, scanning quickly. "She was attacked," Dante said, reading over her shoulder. "By—" His face went pale. "By Silas," Maris finished, the words like acid. "And my father tried to stop him." Mrs. Bramble nodded slowly. "The old boss's brother, Giovanni. He loved your mother. When he discovered what Silas had done, he helped her escape. And Silas killed him for it," Dante said, the pieces fitting together. "Made it look like a rival family hit." Maris felt dizzy. "So we're—" "Cousins," Dante confirmed. "Not siblings." The relief that flooded through both their faces said everything they weren't ready to speak aloud. "We need Silas to confess," Dante said, spreading documents across the apartment's kitchen table. "Not just to me, not just to you, but to everyone who matters." For 3 days they'd been planning in the safe apartment. Dante had retrieved hidden records, ledgers, flash drives, and physical evidence he'd collected over years, waiting for his moment. "These prove money laundering," he said, pointing to account statements. "These link Silas to 3 murders he ordered using my name. And these," he tapped a folder, "show he's been selling family secrets to competitors." Maris studied his face. The hearing device remained behind his ear, his connection to the world he'd been cut off from for a decade. "It's not enough." "Oh, is it?" she asked. Dante shook his head. "Silas has judges and cops in his pocket. Paper can disappear. Witnesses too. Then what's our move? We need something bulletproof. Something public." His eyes met hers. "We need Silas to hang himself." Maris straightened. "I know someone. A detective who tried to help Rory. Jonas Rourke. He got demoted for asking too many questions about the warehouse fire. Can you trust him? More than most cops. He has no love for Silas or his paid officers." Dante nodded slowly. "Call him. But be careful. No details on the phone." That night, Maris met Rourke at an all-night diner miles from the Moretti territory. The detective looked older than she remembered. More grey in his hair, deeper lines around his eyes. "You disappeared," he said, sliding into the booth. After the funeral. I had to find answers." "And did you?" Maris leaned forward. "More than I expected. I need your help." Rourke's eyes narrowed. "Last time I helped your family, I lost my rank, my partner, and nearly my badge. This time we've got proof, real proof, against the man who actually killed Rory." Something flickered in Rourke's tired eyes. "Who?" "Silas Crane." Rourke went still. "Moretti's right hand. Dante Moretti wants to help us take him down." Rourke laughed, a short, disbelieving sound. "The deaf mob boss wants to take down his own consigliere? You're either lying or being played." "Neither." Maris slid a flash drive across the table. "Start with this. When you're ready to hear more, there's a number on the drive." Back at the apartment, Dante was finalizing their most dangerous move. "We need to go back," he said. "To the estate? After they tried to kill us?" "That's what Silas won't expect." Dante's eyes were cold, determined. "He thinks he knows me. The silent, controlled boss who lets him speak. We're going to show him someone new." "When?" "Saturday. Silas is hosting a meeting of allies, politicians, businessmen, cops on his payroll, all the power players who help him operate." Maris's heart pounded. "You want to confront him there? I want to expose him there, with everyone watching." Dante's hand found hers. "But I won't risk you. If you want out—" "No," Maris said firmly. "I started this for Rory. I'll finish it with you." Their fingers intertwined. No longer strangers, no longer enemies. Just 2 people fighting the same devil. The estate ballroom glittered with wealth and corruption, Men in tailored suits worth more than a year's rent. Women draped in diamonds that could feed families for decades, crystal glasses catching light like frozen stars. At the centre stood Silas, perfectly at ease, raising a toast. "To the Moretti legacy," he said, voice smooth. "Long may it—" The double doors swung open. Dante walked in, calm as death. Maris walked beside him, head high. A murmur rippled through the room. Silas's smile froze. "You're supposed to be dead," Dante spoke clearly, steadily, so everyone could hear. "I'm not deaf." The room snapped into stunned silence. Dante continued, voice controlled, every word a blade. "I was never deaf. I was drugged, surgically altered, and silenced by Silas Crane." Gasps. Confusion. Fear. Silas laughed too loudly. "He's lying. He's unstable." Maris stepped forward. "We have proof." She raised a small recorder, already running, and Silas, the arrogant, leaned in. "Proof?" he scoffed. "You mean that cheap device? Or the maid's tears?" Dante's eyes narrowed. "Or your confession?" Silas's face flickered. Too late. Detective Rourke and a team surged in from hidden exits. Warrants in hand, cameras rolling, audio recording live. Silas reached for his gun, but Kellen, revealed as a double agent, grabbed his wrist and twisted. Silas screamed, and, for the first time in years, the puppet master lost control. "The charges against you, Mr. Crane," Rourke announced, loud enough for everyone to hear, "include conspiracy to commit murder, obstruction of justice, fraud, extortion." "This is absurd," Silas spat. "You have no evidence." "We have your financial records," Dante cut in. "Every transaction you made in my name, every deal, every hit. We have witness testimony," Maris added. "From staff members you thought were too scared to talk." "And we have your own words," Rourke finished, holding up a phone. "From the greenhouse, from your office, from tonight." Silas's eyes darted around the room, searching for allies. But faced with police badges and recording devices, his supporters were suddenly very interested in their shoes. "You think you've won?" Silas hissed at Dante. "You think this ends with me?" "No," Dante said, his voice steady. "But it starts with you." As officers moved to cuff him, Silas locked eyes with Maris. "Ask him about your mother, little maid. Ask him what really happened the night she ran." Maris felt her blood go cold. "What does he mean?" she whispered to Dante. But Dante's face had gone blank, his eyes following Silas as he was led away. And in that moment, Maris realized there was one more truth still hidden, one more secret that could break them both. Silas Crane went down hard, charged with conspiracy, murder, corruption, obstruction, and a trail of crimes that spilled beyond the city. The Moretti organization fractured. Some men ran, some surrendered. Some tried to keep fighting until Dante handed over the ledgers. The staff were relocated and protected. Mrs. Bramble testified, her voice shaking but proud. And Maris? Maris stood at Rory's grave, empty and symbolic now, because the man she thought she lost might have been a pawn. But the pain was still real. Dante joined her, quiet. "I'm sorry," he said. Maris's eyes filled. "For what?" "For everything," Dante whispered. "For the life that touched yours like a curse." Maris turned to him. "Do you still want redemption?" Dante nodded. "More than I want power." A long silence hung between them, no longer forced, no longer cruel, just honest. "Silas said to ask you about my mother," Maris finally said. "What did he mean?" Dante's jaw tightened. "I found out after you called Rourke. Mrs. Bramble told me the full story." "Which is?" "The night your mother fled, my father wasn't home. I was the one who found her after Silas." He couldn't finish. "I was 13. I got help. I told my uncle Giovanni." "And he helped her escape," Maris said softly, "at the cost of his life." Dante's voice roughened. "Silas wanted you to blame me for not stopping him, for not saving your mother sooner." Maris reached for his hand. "You were a child. So were you." His fingers tightened around hers. "When I saw you again, I didn't recognize you. But I felt something. A connection I couldn't explain. Maris exhaled, shaky. Then we do it right. No more secrets. No more puppets. Dante reached for her hand, slowly, asking without words. Maris let him. Not because the past was clean, but because both of them were finally choosing the future. As they walked away, Detective Rourke called out, "Dante, there's something else." He held up a new file, freshly unsealed. A name highlighted in yellow. Not Silas, not Moretti. Someone higher. Someone who funded Silas's operations from the shadows. Rourke's expression darkened. Silas wasn't the top. He was a middleman. Dante's jaw tightened. Maris's grip on his hand hardened. Because justice had begun. But the real war? It was just waking up. You've witnessed a story of betrayal, secrets, and the power of truth. A deaf mafia boss who found his voice. A woman seeking justice who found family instead. But this is only the beginning. Who is pulling the strings from the shadows? What new dangers await Dante and Maris? Subscribe now and comment with your theories about who's behind it all. Don't miss the next chapter in their fight for justice, because in this world, the most powerful enemies are the ones you never see coming.